Okay, this is me. I'm Pushpa Ithal. And I started off my career as an engineer, like I think most of the Indians.
Yeah.
You can join us here.
Sure.
I love building products, and I got my MBA right here in Santa Clara University. And then I moved to marketing because I joined a startup. After I worked at Oracle, and that's where I transitioned to product management. And then after that, I joined a security startup called Silvertail Systems, which got acquired by RSA later. And then it was, it's a smaller team, so you work both marketing, product management at the same time. That's where I'm kind of moved to marketing. And then now I am the founder and CEO of a company called Advo.Ninja. It's in social marketing. The things that I saw at RSA, which is a really super good brand, but yet we had so many challenges getting the social attention. And then that's why I saw the gaps. And then, there is MarTech industry is going through a lot of transformation itself. So, there it is. I started my company. So we include, let me tell you a little bit about it because, that's how the influencer thing comes into picture too, because that's where I study a lot about how do people become influencers. We are working with our own customers, right? So the product we have is like, can we include all our employees in social marketing, right? So in social marketing, meaning it's like amplification of your social. That is only the minimal thing. The first thing that people do is like, okay, I want to, do the right thing on like social. When I talk about the influencer part, how do you build your personal branding? So that is one part of it, right? So how do you become part of it? And then other thing is like, how do we make individual people as influencers? It could be executives, or it could even be like, head of architecture. Whoever has the knowledge about the product, whoever is going to represent the brand, and then we want to include them in market. It's not really market, it's influencer marketing, but how do you first of all make them into influencers, right? So product managers, they are the first ones in the dock, right? So influencers, inbound, outbound, I'm going to talk about two things today. Inbound is like, how do you influence people within your company across the teams, and then within the teams that you know, it's the people that you already know, right? And then the outbound is like people that you don't know. It's public, right? So like we're sitting here, we don't know each other, but how can I make you do something so that we're influencing each other. So in that, inbound influence, let's talk about that first. We all know, right? It's like product managers are the CEOs of the product. So I think that came from Ben Horowitz, right? Almost 20 years ago when he wrote the book, Good Product Managers, Bad Product Managers. And then there's been, is it a myth? Is it true? Some people are trying to move to product management. Since you guys are all product managers, I think we don't have to talk about that. So what's your background?
I'm a product manager at VMware.
VMware? Okay, awesome. And then you?
Director of product at consumer companies, so in the hotel space, real estate space, e-commerce space, and currently taking 6 months to hang out with my kid, and then I don't know what I'm gonna do next.
All right. Yeah, we did introductions. That's why I'm asking just the two of you here. So, there are inbound influence, right? So when there is like a fog of sometimes people think, hey, there is like CEO, and then what do I do? And people that are not in product management, they want to know a lot more. Since we are all product managers, we kind of know, right? Nobody reports to us, right? And then we don't have P&L, we don't have the budgets, nothing. But how do we influence? Maybe more since you are working with cross-functional teams, it's much more than just working with cross-functional teams, right? We all know that. So when there is like project managers, or we call them program managers versus product managers, there's a huge difference, right? Because program managers say, I work with all the teams, and then like cross-functional, but it's mostly in terms of like just communication, right? So it's having an impact. Having an impact is really, really hard. So because, again, for the same reasons that they don't report to us. So there are three things that we want to do. One is communication, and the next one is like, how do we take that communication to next level and then make it actually, like, the content we have is our vision, right? So first of all, get your audiences, right? Gain their trust. So that's the first thing. The communication is not just talking, emailing, right? So gaining the trust is what we as product managers want to do. So when we gain trust, and then, like, it's the authority. We don't have the title sometimes. I mean, some product managers start off, because I even know like real-time examples where they think, whatever I say, the engineering has to do it. It doesn't work that way. That's not going to work, right? So the engineering is going to come back with like, so many different things. Like, I don't even like trust you, because the first thing is like, okay, did you do your homework? Because they are going to ask the questions, right? So first of all, gain authority, right? By not just like, you don't have to negotiate, right? Once you have the authority, people know, they trust you, and then they follow you. That's what you want to do, right? And then examples being, how do you help people with your knowledge? Only if you help them, that's the easiest way to get authority, right? And then to share knowledge, like what you have. So several times we are all on this like, mailing list where support is struggling, and then they don't have the answers, they don't have access to code, and they want to answer questions. And then product managers are busy, we don't help them. Take a moment and then go actually like, attend those calls where they are on the fire, and then help them, right? So that's when you start gaining their trust and then their respect, right? So it's, again, you don't become the CEO, you have to earn it. That's what it is, right? And then marketing that's another one. So sometimes marketing and product management work very closely. I don't know how many people of you work very closely with marketing. So because they are in a spot where they are solely responsible for branding of the company, right? It's a lot of heavy lifting if you think about it, because they do the content, but the knowledge lies everywhere in the company. They don't have all the knowledge. For them to get the knowledge, it's really hard on a daily basis if you look at it, right? So as a product manager, so usually I had always like, inclination towards like working with marketing, because I like it, right? I like it, write the content. So when I was at RSA, the head of product management, he said, okay, let's do 3 content. It's like, 3 content, pieces of content. Either you do a video or a blog post, or write an article, like, answer a question or something. It's the intranet. So, but actually this is whatever we answer, it goes to your customers. It's a closed one. It's not public, but it's customers too, right? So when we have that kind of a thing, then all product managers start thinking about, okay, I know that, so I can contribute. Because product management knowledge always, it's hard to spend our time helping others, because we are always like, so many emails, answer questions, and then 50 or 60% of your time taken by like engineering. So how can you help? So, I would write my own blog posts and then like give it to the marketing. And then they would kind of like, change it a little bit, and then right? Just help others. So that's what it is, right? So it is not only communicating, but going further. So if you look at this one, you communicate with all these people, but there is this line, but in turn, you are communicating with your customers, partners on a daily basis, every day in all your tasks. And I haven't usually like worked with finance much as a product manager, other than just sending my expense reports. Otherwise, mostly all other functions we work, right? So, and the next one is like, how do you build your vision? So vision, I mean, again, usually what happens is there is a process, and then, we have release cycles. We kind of get caught in those things. And, I always say, when you go fresh into an environment, you will become one among them very soon. right? So how do you pull yourself out of that, think outside the box and work outside the box all the time? Just keep that in mind always, right? So that's how you're going to influence. So what it is, like, industry trends, we know that, we got to do it, but it's hard to like take our time off and then actually do this, right? Competitive analysis, again, this is something that you gotta literally think about it, because I know it's like, it's marketing's job sometimes, it's, we don't have to do it. And several times they don't have the deep technical knowledge to do the real analysis, competitive analysis. You take it up, right? You take up all these things and then people will follow you, right? So once what happened in this startup that I was working with, there were several competitors, right? At 11 p.m. one day, it's like, my boss is like, oh, we lost and like, we are in head to head, and then, it's really going, we're going head to head with another competitor. Okay, let me do the competitive analysis myself. I don't want the marketing team to do it, right? I would just like do the competitive analysis myself, going into feature by feature, how much ever information you can get, right? And then do it yourself. So then then pass it on to people, then they would just start following you versus like, you looking for information from others. Because again, like, the knowledge lies within product management for all these big products. And then you do like sales interviews and surveys. These are some things that I did. And then competition, yeah, just, something like that, just put it out there. So one more thing that we did was when Gartner report comes out, right? So maybe some of you are like, on the Gartner report. Just take the report and do a detailed analysis. Again, it's not your job to do it, right? But just take that and put every company that's out there and put the strength, weakness, features, where are we lacking, where are they lacking. That's going to directly go into your release, next release. If you do that kind of an analysis, send it to everybody, and then you'll know where people want to look at. It's going to be awesome. One last thing about like inbound influencing is like there are people influencing things, right? So now, first of all, you have the communication. That means you have now your audience, trusted audience. The second one is we have a vision to talk about. Okay, so now we have content, we have people, so what do we do? Again, going back to like, help people, right? Empowerment. That book, Game Theory at Work, has anyone read? It's a good book. So it's about like, half of it is about influencing, other things they talk about like, how to behave at work. So that's a good book to read when you get a chance. So empowerment, again, you help others to succeed. That's what CEOs do, right? So if we want to be the CEOs, that's what we're going to do. Help support succeed. Help sales engineering succeed. Help others succeed. So I think like, for example, like for your new product, right? So when you brought that up, like sales, you do sales enablement and everything, but you are still the most passionate person to talk. Go help the sales deals. You volunteer, right? Because they cannot talk like how you talk, right? Maybe after like, sometimes they will pick it up, but till then they don't. You just go volunteer. And yeah, and the other one is like, when you have a vision, they're, articulating a solution or a problem, and then in a very impactful way is hard. There are stories everywhere, but you gotta pull that story out and then actually tell. Only then people will start listening to you, right? So, oh, okay, that is impactful. Okay, now I understand what it is. It's sometimes that it's just something that you are naturally born with. Sometimes you gotta practice, right? So it's like my 3-year-old daughter, she would say like, "What is your dream?" I'm like, "Oh, my dream is to become a dentist." It's like, okay, so what do you want to do? And then she wants to like paint a picture about it. Okay, I want the world full of like, I want the world to have clean teeth and then no cavities. Like, okay, so you don't have a story, but you know a way to tell that, right? So it's sometimes it's just bringing that energy and enthusiasm in the right way. It has an impact. Right? And then when we talk a little bit about the outbound influencing, that's when you kind of go beyond your usual audience, right? So that kind of helped even advising customers, right? So what they need instead of it's sometimes we have these solution specialists, they help them, but go beyond that and then help them with what are the new things, what are the new technologies out there, and then you help them come up with, hey, this is what the difference is so that you buy this versus that, or we're just making you easier to choose this. Yeah? And then relationship building, that's always good. So is there any activities you guys do as just how do you make friends with other teams? Is there any specific thing you go for lunch or anything fun that you do for yourself? Anybody?
One thing I did is I went to the customer service team and asked them, how can we help make your job easier?
Yeah.
And what was interesting is it wasn't about the product. They had to make collection calls.
Ah.
And so I was able to find someone in the organization whose job it was to make collection calls to take that off of them. So then they could focus on the product and give me some better feedback.
Yeah.
And I was a hero.
There you go.
Because they hated making those calls.
Yeah. Oh, anyone else?
Yeah, so when we launch a new product, so basically, even though we were in a big company, Salesforce, but our team was a startup, so we had none of the support infrastructure around us. So did a lot of direct enablement for support team, for professional services, for pre-sales people, and pre-sales people we are still doing quite a bit. And then even direct enablement for the customers, literally, if they had questions, getting on the calls with them and helping them through post-sales implementation issues kind of thing. So did a lot of that for 1 full year until we built out that structure and organization around us. Kind of
Right,
thing.
right, yeah.
So yeah, so that help others succeed kind of thing, yeah, big time.
Absolutely.
And then actually found some common themes and started writing some FAQs and all those so that I
Yeah.
can scale kind of.
Right, right. Sometimes it's the same question comes
Yeah.
back, right? It's exactly the same question. Maybe even the same person is asking after a couple of months. They're like, come on, man. Okay, let me now write it up and then put it somewhere. All these makes it more efficient.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? One more?
So I brought the engineering team to our sales office, which was a flight away. But the result was that the engineering team ended up picking up a sales problem for their hack week. And one of the sales team was actually on their hack team. And so in the future, they knew each other by name, and I think it built trust on both sides, that the sales team realized that the engineers understood what their world was like, at least a little bit, and they were trying to help them. And the engineers realized that when we were fixing things that weren't new development, but that sort of extra 20 to 25% on your backlog,
Mhm.
that it was problems that were actually affecting real people and that were totally worth solving. So it definitely helped in sprint planning when I was like, okay, and here's some stories that we're gonna be picking up for sales, and they were like, oh, okay, cool, because they actually knew that they mattered and they weren't just like something that was sort of stopping them from doing the exciting work.
Oh yeah, so it's sometimes even creating 1 or 2 minute videos of things. These days everything is a video thing, so it's more effective. Then we started even sales engineers. Anytime there's this little feature, so sometimes it makes sense. Just create a video or create a blog post or something. So outbound influence. Now, product leaders are often seen because things are changing, right? So 20 years ago, mostly people from sales background were the only ones that could make it to a CEO position. And then things are changing a lot more. And then now engineers are building companies without a business partner, right? They don't need one because I learned business, I can do it. So, and then product managers are most often as seen as a very potential for a CEO or a COO role. So I think that makes sense, right? I mean, we're talking about products, like how you were saying, it's almost like a startup, and then product people are helping everybody. And then I think that makes sense.
Question there. No? So that CEO route, generally I've seen it work out in the consumer space quite a bit, but in enterprise software, especially sales still seems to rule the roost. And generally, I see salespeople go into the CEO roles. Do you see that changing?
So in a very large company like enterprises, maybe that is still the case, which is like, 20-year-old company and then, they're right. So when you see a lot of startups, that's where the things are changing, right? So maybe by now it's all like mid-level, but when there's a startup, I've seen several startups which start with a couple of engineers and they want one product person, and then product person kind of like taking on that CEO role. And then mostly the GMs of companies, they are the ones that become CEOs as well. And then mostly they're again like, the large part is they are managing engineering and product management, and sometimes they have a little bit of marketing, not even sometimes sales, but they also are moving into, a lot of them are moving into CEO roles.
Just one point on that is VMware is trying to encourage people from product to move towards higher up the ladder.
Yeah.
So they are trying to bring in engineering reports to under product people. So who doesn't have engineering experience, like managing people experience. So they are trying to bring in engineering reports under product leaders. So
Oh, really?
they're kind of encouraging people to grow up the ladder from product background.
Interesting.
So Steve Jobs was not the only one. There are so many other product people.
Yeah.
Okay. So inbound, there are outbound influence, the how, right? So how we talked about internal influencing. That's first of all absolutely necessary, right? How do we work with people? And then the second one is personal branding, and third one, that's the final step, is can you become the thought leader in your own world? So personal branding, I don't know whether we have time. I mean, if you want to do this exercise by yourself, right? So come up with a few things. What is personal branding? How do people perceive you? How do they see you? What do they remember about you? And then the first thing is like, okay, they just remember you as a person, right? So the second step would be, okay, what did you say? They remember a thing from what you said. And then the ultimate thing is like, okay, did they take action on the things that you said? So those are like 3 steps of influencing somebody, right? So personal branding leads into that, right? So first is personal branding, so people know who you are. Because, there are several, places that you have talked in, like public places. First thing, they, like, 5 minutes, they're just trying to understand who you are and the background. That gives them a lot more context, what you're going to say, and then they take action. So here, this one is, okay, you come up with what is the goal, right? So what's my mission? Right now, my mission is to like build my company further, right? Grow my company. And then what are my interests? And then what are my strengths? And then, then you start jotting it down. And then how can I make an impact? How can I build my personal brand? So once you have this goal, then you try to see, okay, what is the how, like the logistics? How do I do it? So if once you do this, so this is my this one always has worked with several people too, okay? You come up with 2 hashtags for yourself. 2 hashtags. One is the brand that you want to be associated with, any brand. Like, for example, my company's brand is my brand now, right? For a student, it's the university they go to, or like any brand that you want to promote, right? So the other one is like how people remember you as a person. So maybe like, next time you see is like the thing that you remember is like, oh, we met at product camp, so product camp. And then the next thing is like, oh, you wore that, right? So, what do you think his brand is? What's the first hashtag?
Philanthropy.
Good one. He is trying still to get that brand because
Microsoft.
Microsoft is still his brand, right?
Microsoft.
So that's what I say, like, Gates Foundation is his brand, but it's still people think like Microsoft. That's the other thing too. Once people have this in their minds, it's hard to change, right? So and then what is his personal one? Any guesses?
Oh, yeah.
He is a brilliant person, smart, and then he can connect with people, everything. But he's on that list for so long, that richest guy, so rich, he's rich.
Yeah.
Okay. How about Mark Cuban? What's his brand hashtag?
Shark Tank.
Shark Tank, okay. But
Mavericks, yeah.
But he wants to go to his Twitter page. You don't see anything about Shark Tank. You see about Mavericks because that's his business. He wants to promote his business, right? And then Shark Tank people, but he also promotes the companies that he invests out of Shark Tank, but he doesn't say much about Shark Tank itself. And then he's a businessman. Maybe we'll remember him one day as president, who knows, but for now it's businessman, right? So these are two things. I mean, I always like come up with these things, and that's how people remember you as. Now, in person and then digital, there are two areas that we need to cover, because it's all digital these days, right? I mean, you spend more time with the person digitally connected versus in person. So in person, I would say, I mean, like, you go to communities or like, meetups. Do you guys go to meetups, any other meetups? Yeah? Sometimes? Yeah, no?
I live too far away.
Where?
I live too far away.
Oh. So maybe there are like, webinars or the digital ones for you, right? So the reason that I suggest you go is just to get the what do people perceive you as? I want to know that, right? Because I went to some of these SVPMA ones in the past, and then like, I go to other ones. I mean, whatever is relevant for you, right? So if you are in sales, you go to sales events. If you are in like, marketing, go to marketing events, or product management events. So one time I went there, and then, some guy, we are connected on LinkedIn, but next time when we meet, he didn't remember my name, but he remembered a tool, a product management tool that I had suggested, Idea Manager. He's like, oh, Idea Manager, you said about that. Okay, so that means, okay, that's good. Something they remember. So you want to know what people remember you for. Are you giving them a tip? Is it like your company? What is it people remember? That's the reason that I would go to. And then digital. So how much time do you guys spend on LinkedIn thinking about what to post, how to have a profile? Do you spend time? Do you give it a thought? It's super, 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 super important. LinkedIn has become the authority has become so much higher that like, people don't really even if they have a resume in front of you, what do? Let's go to LinkedIn, look it up, right? Because LinkedIn somehow gives more information, recommendations, other things, so many things, right? Your activities. So these are only a few things. You just give it kind of like, do a Google search. There are several articles out there that tells you how to fix it. Even I myself have written blogs about like, take 10 minutes and how to fix your profile, right? So use a professional photo and like, write a great summary, all those things, right? All the good things, have the right keyword. So let's say if somebody is looking for a product manager speaker in Bay Area, okay? What do? Go on LinkedIn, search up those keywords. So do you come up? Where do you come up in the list? Depends on several things. One is like the keywords that you use, right? And then like, if you want, because some people say, oh, I want to change the world, one company at a time, or title, something like that. That sounds good, but it's hard to come up in the right keyword, right? And then you have that in the summary, then you come up in the keywords, okay? And then the other thing is LinkedIn doesn't care if you don't have activities. They don't want to show you. They are not obligated to show you. They say, you didn't post for the last 3 months. I'm not going to show you in the list. I'm going to show you in the list only if you're active. So that's why. Update weekly status, that's the one. Just at least once a week. Ideal thing is 2 to 3 a week. Have an activity on LinkedIn, so that people know you, that you're like, you're doing things. And then list your skills. I think those things you've done it, and then join relevant groups. That's also helps a lot in even like Google searches sometimes, like where all you're active, those things. And then customize LinkedIn invitation. That's just a tip. When you send invitations, always put a note, unless it's like, your high school buddy. Maybe even then you should put a note, I was your high school buddy, remember. So that's just tip when you're connecting with people, but make sure your keywords and then have activity. Either you like it or post it or something. So that's what, I mean, we were talking too, is like, when we include employees in the participation, that's one of the major reasons is how do we help them build their social profiles? So on LinkedIn, it's all professional, right? So whatever company that you're working for, if you are posting the things that the company does, right, then you are perceived as a good employee, and then he knows things about the industry because it's industry news, right? And then if you are in cybersecurity, like, that's my background, and then you talk about like cybersecurity, and those are the keywords, and that's how you're going to be ranked again within LinkedIn. And I think you guys do too, right? Do you post, like, VMwares
Sometimes.
once in a while?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
When I publish a blog, I just list it in my LinkedIn. So.
Okay. So do you guys, what kind of content do you post? Anybody? What do you post?
I post some personal learning sometimes.
Okay.
Also, sometimes I share if there is some big news, or if new release is coming out, and if we have posted some relevant content for our product. So
Okay.
some big news about the company or product kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you guys, what do you do?
I don't post to LinkedIn.
All right, you're gonna do it, right? You work for over so much content on this. So sorry, where do you work? Sorry.
I work for a SaaS
SaaS
firm.
company. Yeah, you'll have a lot of content, right? What do you post?
I'm just a lurker as well.
Yeah.
Most of our tech marketing use Twitter more than LinkedIn. So
Okay.
That's where they are very active, like the Twitter community, like VMware user group and all those things are more active on Twitter. So.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, I could cover all the social networks,
Sure.
so I just picked two because yeah. And then do you post
Yeah, on LinkedIn. LinkedIn and Twitter.
LinkedIn and Twitter? Okay, awesome. So Quora, how many of you are active on Quora? That's kind of like a so upcoming thing. Now they even have ads now. Yeah, they're growing. I was like, Mountain View downtown is their office. So Quora, do you guys know what Quora is?
Yeah.
All of you? Okay. I go there and post one for, it's really, the topics are such a high range, right? Anywhere from like, how do we solve world hunger to like the most bizarre one that I've seen is like, how do I flirt without a social media was a question. It's like, the topic is really wide, but you choose what you want to, and then there are like, what the topics that like the knowledge and all those things, you can filter it out so that you don't get other things. So I would definitely say post things there. These are the reasons that it is again, like when Google searches on your name and then the right content comes out, right? Otherwise, mostly our content, okay, it's LinkedIn, it's Twitter, and then like, some other thing that we don't even know, versus if you have written an answer or if you have participated somewhere, the perception that people get is like very quickly. It's all a fraction of a second. People make up their minds, right? Hey, where are you active? And nobody goes beyond the first page on Google, so like, yeah.
So I can share a quick example there. So my brother is a financial advisor based in India, and he posts a lot. And on some of the topics, he's the number one influencer on that topic. So based on the views and everything. So now he gets a lot of inbound inquiries from international, like Australia, Dubai, everywhere. So people reaching out to him, completely cold. So it's great inbound marketing.
Exactly. I mean, that's how being influencer, right? So I have it on the last page, the last slide here. So what it is, like, sometimes the brands, through the brands, and then, you are becoming the influencer using that. The other one is like you yourself are an influencer, and then you build your brand around it, right? So that's the reason I think that's a good example there. So this one I wanted to show you again, like, post relevant content, blog post, videos, and then follow right people and act responsibly. You gotta be really responsible on digital. Just make sure that all the links, all the things that you do is the right thing. I don't want to go into detail. So this is just an example what I do, right? So, and then this is my Twitter, and then, it's all relevant to like social marketing, basically, right? So that's what I'm working on right now, and then all things are like relevant. So for Quora, I don't think I have the slide there. So Quora, it's about the same thing. So I mean, I'm not an influencer there yet, but definitely it's like, you know, I have about 15 to 20,000 views which I got like over a period of time, right? So it doesn't take too long because there are so many people. If you answer right questions, and then people start following you, and then you show up in several places. So the last one here is thought leadership. So once you build your personal brand, right, and then your influencer internally, and then now you have a personal brand, and then next step is like, you know, a thought leader. So does anyone know who that guy is? Neil Patel? You know? Okay. I chose his name because his brand, I mean, look him up. I think he started his first business out of garage as a team and then all those things, right? So he has several businesses. It's all around web traffic and then social media marketing and everything. But people don't really remember all the companies that he does. But all they remember is he is such a great writer. And then he gives all kinds of, like, you know, again, like the word that you were saying, right? If you say something useful to somebody, then they will start, oh, okay, I know now who you are, and then the next time you say something, I'm gonna listen, because it's giving you a tip. So just look him up, he has so many tips, and then his brand is around, like, you know, that person's brand. And then he creates companies, and then it's so easy for him to get any, like, audiences. If he posts, like, you know, a webinar, thousands of people come all around the world. Again, he started doing this as just like helping others, and then whenever he finds out something, he just goes and writes it up, right? So for example, in an example that I can give is when you don't have customers, when you don't have anybody to like give you feedback, how do you build products, right? There is a very big vision about this is what a product should be. How do you build it, right? Where would you get it? So there are several resources that I looked that up, and then, you know, when I was building it, I went and wrote the blog about it. Then it's just sharing knowledge, right? Sharing knowledge is fun. Sometimes it's just the beginning, and then people start, you know, and then they start following you. And then public speaking, that's another thing. I mean, if you speak at any other, like, you know, meetups or something, that's a great opportunity for you to know, look, okay, this is what I'm sharing. Do you think it's helpful for others? Like, you know, there's a content marketing meetup that I talked at a couple of weeks ago. And then, in fact, VMware's social marketing team was there. And we were talking about how things work, right? So that's a great one. And the other one, we are all in Silicon Valley. So there are so many startups out there. If you want to share your knowledge, become an advisor to one of those companies. That's a great way of sharing your knowledge and then being in that industry. And then once you're becoming, like, you know, like an advisor for a couple of places, that takes your, like, you know, again, influencing capability much higher.
How do you break into that, though?
Advisor? So first of all, again, like, you know, there's so many meetups for entrepreneur meetups around even like Mountain View downtown, right? So you just look it up. So you go there and then talk to entrepreneurs. Usually, you know, then you say, okay, this is my thing, and then do you want to help? I mean, that's the best way to do it. Or AngelList, you go reach out. If you look at, you know, AngelList, you know AngelList. Yeah. So AngelList, look up for the companies in your area, and then where you can help them, and then just reach out. Hey, you know what? This is my background. And then, you know, do you want anything?
Oh, okay.
So there are those, I mean, again, there are so many startups in this. I mean, we are fortunate to be living here, right? So then just reach out to people. That's the best way to, like, you know. Yeah. Sometimes these accelerators, they need advisors in areas. So that's another way to, like, look it up. There are so many, again, accelerators where they are helping the startups, right? And then right, that's it. So do you guys know where to do this? I didn't go to the URL yet. Did you do it for the previous session? Okay. You go and then do a survey. I think this session and then also on I think the overall, maybe that survey is for both. All right, any questions? Did it help?
I have one question. Back to the first half about the inbound
Mhm.
influence. Could you talk a bit about influencing engineers a bit more specifically? Because I think your relationship with engineers is a little different from your relationships with sales, marketing, support. Like those three groups, it's very obvious how, I think with your examples, how to help them. But in my point of view, or maybe this is just my experience, like the engineers are helping me more than I'm helping them in a lot of cases, right? Because I'm the one like, okay, this is what we're gonna work on this sprint, right? This is a project we work on next, so.
That is, yeah, exactly. That's a very, very good question because that's where a lot of hurdles sometimes come, right? So that's when the engineers sometimes take it over, right? But that may not be the ideal case for that whole product because they are not talking to the customers. Are you technical background? Do you have?
I don't have a technical background.
Okay.
I've gone more technical over the years. I think that's also on our challenge, right? Like just
Right, so keeping ourselves technical is the first thing. Technical is in terms of like not coding, right?
right.
But knowing the details. Let's say if an architect comes back and asks you these two options, which one you want to choose, and then you do your own thing and then they take it. But you know, the way that I build it with like engineers, first of all, I have engineering background, so it helped. And then, but of course, you being a product manager for a long time, then you forget, right? So, but you keep up with it. So for with engineers, like, you know what, these are the things for with engineering managers or something, right? Hey, this is what the customers are looking for. What do you think is the best way to do it, right? You just sit one-to-one with them and then what do you think is the option? Okay, if you do it this way, how long does it take? We should go that way, how long does it take? So just go into the little bit more details with them, otherwise they do not respect you, right? If you just do a high level, they do not, right? You cannot get their respect. It's really hard to get it. So because they think that, okay, you just like coming back with some like list of things that either from like, your, wherever you keep all your feature list or some customer meeting you came back with and then just saying it. So one more thing that helps is the second thing that I talked about, like where it is, how do you have your own vision? Right? You do the competitive analysis because engineers don't know what the outside world is, right?
Yeah.
So when you bring those very specific, hey, this is the exact competitive feature that we want to do, and then do it. So then they will do it, right? So your ability to go deep into the engineering side, just to spend more time with them and understanding, and then also doing your own analysis of the outside and then actually educating them on that too. Because sometimes even engineering directors and at that level also, sometimes they don't have the complete picture of how the product is being marketed. And then whom are we actually targeting as customers, right? And then they don't have that. And then how does it affect? So combination of those two should definitely help.
I think to what Lori was talking about, if you get them in front of the other parts of the business, and then they can see that there's people behind what you're saying.
Right.
So now you're not just delivering a message that's your own opinion.
Yeah.
You're delivering a message that from someone that they've actually met, they understand. If you can get them in front of customers sometimes too. So, a lot of the developers I've worked with, they do have an interest in the business beyond just code, but they don't know how to get there and they don't know how to translate it. And so if you can take that step for them, I think they'll be happier with that too.
Right. Absolutely. So there are, we always see two sets of engineers, right? Some people, they are more hungry for how the business is done, and the other set is, I don't care. I just want to code and go back home, and then you tell me, and then, but they'll come back and say, that's not the right thing to do, right? So that's the hardest part, I think, right? So, you got to identify and then differentiate those kind of people. So, because I've dealt with people who is like so, this is several years ago, and me as a product manager have to influence, basically, with my product requirements, who is like, I think 20 years senior to me, and then architect, head of architect, right? How would I do it? It's so hard, right? So bringing him into when we are designing, hey, this is what we're designing. What do you think? Sometimes that's what they want. I mean, it depends on the personality, right? I've done that too. Okay, you come here, when I'm designing, you come in. And then he starts thinking, oh yeah, this is much more harder than when I was outside the room. So you guys are doing a good job. Then he would go like, oh, no, it's not that easy. So now we are all together. We're all working together.
I think it's really important to not that you want to put everyone in individual boxes, but to understand what kinds of engineers you're working with and who sort of fits into what categories, because some engineers would react really well to going and meeting customers and talking about the business problem, and they love that and they're hungry for it, and others are terrified and they're just like, why did you pull me out of the building? And so you have to find something that works with that group. And so sometimes with some of the more I'd say introverted engineers, something that's worked is to try to find opportunities to have interactions with them where I'm not doing most of the talking. Because a lot of times they're like, oh, product managers is always just telling us like what they think they should do, and giving them opportunities to I bring them things and I tell them, I'm like, what's missing, like what's wrong, what have I missed, what do you know that I don't, and give them opportunities to be the expert, exactly. Because that way it can be the beginning of a deeper, more technical conversation. And so I found that, as engineers kind of understand, like, oh, she does know, like, did you go to engineering? And I was like, no, I started in engineering, I didn't end up in engineering. So, no, I mean, it's like, it gives them an idea that they're like, oh, they may have a product manager label, but they're an intelligent person, and I actually enjoy interacting with them, so.
I mean, for everyone, I think if you try to understand the problems that they are facing, that's when you can lead them, right? So if you say, oh, and what the pain point is, that's exactly what we are trying to do with the customers, right? What's your pain point? And then so we're going to solve it. Yeah, there was this meeting, I still remember, we used to wake up early in the morning, a bank in London, long calls, right? And after that, an engineer came and said, that's how your meetings go, because they were really hard on us. And then that's what you do, like every day. It's hard. I don't want to be that person. I mean, because we do get, kind of pinata from everywhere sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Thanks for coming.